the beer. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway,
live
my Diet Coke.
Oh, you're saying okay. Hey, everybody! Hello, and welcome to the Douding Thomas monthly recap with special guest Mike BenderTube Han. Mike, what is up, my friend?
Hey, how you doing? How you doing?
I am doing well. And joining me, as always, is co-producer Cliff. Cliff, how are you doing?
Hello.
Excellent. And we are doing the monthly recap a mere 7 days before the month actually ends, because the last time we tried to get closer to the end of the month, everything got screwed up. So here we are, and we are recapping the month that was November 2020. And I don't know about you guys, but like my year is starting to kind of take an upturn here. Like 2020 has been garbage with the exception of the launch of this podcast, but like everything else has been terrible. And like we're going live. And hey, Zachary Palmer, welcome to the show. Good to see you here. So anyway, guys, like how's your month been? I don't want to like be like, oh well, you know, I got my new car. No, I don't want to know, like, but just generally, how you guys doing?
Yeah, it's turning up a little bit. Yeah.
All right. How about you, Cliff? Everything coming up roses?
So I'm gonna say like the last month, it feels like I just recorded the last one with you.
We kind of did actually. But
I honestly don't know where the month of November has gone. My work has been insane, so yeah. But I'm good.
You know, when you spend, an extra 2.5 weeks staring at election results, the month tends to fly by. But we're not going to talk about that because this is not a political pod. There's actually a lot that we need to talk about. So I think we just need to kind of just dive right in here and get the ball rolling. And I want to start off. Now, the reason Mike is here is because initially I was going to do my iPhone 12 Pro review this month, and as I said this on the podcast last week, obviously in retrospect, it was when you hear this, it'll have been like 3 weeks ago, but I said on the podcast last week, as a reviewer, I just don't think I'm there to have a good enough understanding of the iPhone and of iOS in general. I'm getting better at it. So Mike was going to be here to, kind of talk about the iPhone a little bit. I know, Cliff, you've used an iPhone occasionally, as you do, because you tend to go through phones like popcorn.
Meander, yeah.
You tend to wander. So anyway, but that being said, I haven't done the iPhone review yet, but I didn't want to renege on my invitation to Mike because he's a buddy. We go back a long ways, actually.
Yeah, we do.
Anyway, so Mike, I just wanted to get your impressions of the iPhone 12 Pro, and just like, I know you're an iOS fan, so I just want to know what draws you to the platform.
It was honestly just it came from a spot of just kind of being burned by early Android. It was just kind of stuff would come out and all of a sudden things on my phone didn't work.
Okay.
And just on iOS, it has to work. So the way they design the store, it all has to work on stuff. So
I would not be surprised if I found out that a lot of iPhone users were burned by early Android days, because honestly, Cliff, those are some rough days.
Oh man. I was just remembering. In fact, I have sitting around here somewhere the original G1, the T-Mobile version, and just going back, and I think it's actually on Donut. It's on one of those early builds. You're just like, ooh.
Yeah.
See, I thought you actually set it down on a donut. Okay.
No. Yeah, it has herniated.
It has hemorrhoids?
Yep, hemorrhoids. There you go. Little red donut for the phone. That would be kind of funny, actually. Someone needs to make that.
So Mike, Zachary has a good question. Talking to me, but you having actually experienced both phones, I think this is actually more of a question for you. Is everything that I've said, when he says you, I assume he means me, but it's all about me. When everything that I've said I liked about the iPhone 12 Pro, would that have applied to last year's iPhone 11 Pro? Are they basically the same phone? Because I've heard a lot of people say
that. Yeah, in terms, you're not getting a lot more this year. Mm-hmm. There's definitely some tweaks and stuff and design changes, but all in all, the camera system's similar, and it runs just the same. Even with a smaller battery, I'm still getting about the same battery life.
My battery life has been actually very respectable. I haven't been going to bed like I don't think I've seen. And on Android it would have turned red, but I don't think I've seen the iPhone icon turn red yet. Like I want to say I've been going to bed around like 30% roughly on most days.
Yeah, honestly, I think the biggest change. Did my voice just change on here?
Well, that happens to all of us eventually.
I just wondered if my mic is still the correct mic. Let me make sure here.
Yeah, you did get a little echoey there. So
check. Okay, sorry. All right.
And if it's not the same mic, then it'll just be a nightmare for me in post. So that'll be fine.
It'll be fine. No worries.
Great. It'll be great.
Right. So yeah, to me the big change is just in the design, going from the sort of rounded sides and in that sort of iPhone's 10 design language to where it is now, and I really like that. Like I'm really glad they're kind of harkening back to the iPhone 5.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Totally,
I do wonder how is it comfortable to hold when it's scaled up like this to this larger size?
Well, you should know I put a case on every single phone that I own because I'm a klutz. So, and it's funny because I've got this case from Gear Forward. This podcast not sponsored by Gear Forward, but let's be honest, it may as well be. But like, and it's I actually had to take the case off the phone earlier today so I could take some photos of it, and I felt like I was going to rip the buttons off the phone just by pulling off this because it's on here, man. It's not going anywhere. It's crazy. But yeah, I love the squared off design. And actually that's reflected in this case too, because the case is actually very, very squared off as well. Kind of has to be because that's how cases case. But yeah, I definitely am digging hard on the iPhone 4-ish design that they have going on here. I love that design language, the squared corners and no squircle though. I'm a little disappointed that squircle isn't there, but and a little preview to the the podcast episode coming up this weekend. I will take a fingerprint sensor over Face ID any day of the week and twice on Sunday, just because like Face ID is good. Face ID is actually a remarkably better than I thought it was going to be, but we're all wearing masks now.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you about that. How's it doing with the mask?
Oh, terrible.
It's doing fine as long as you do this,
or you do one of these.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Hey, Michael Keeper, how you doing? So Minnesota is in the hizzy. That's cool. So anyway, so just getting back to the iPhone in general, I don't know when I'm going to be ready to review this properly because like. I've gotten a lot better at iOS, like as if that's a talent, but I've gotten better at learning iOS in the past few weeks. And I'm really glad that I did not try to force out a review before I was ready to do it, because I would have dinged the hell out of the software. And the software isn't as bad as I thought it was, but it's also not as good as it could be. But that's probably saved for a different device. Right. So now, Mike, since you're here, I wanted to take the opportunity. I know that you just recently reviewed the TCL 10 Pro on your channel, link in the show notes. So be sure to go check that out. And so, Cliff and I have already given our thoughts on the TCL 10 Pro, but I just wanted to get your thoughts before we can transition over into the TCL 10 5G, which Cliff and I both have.
Overall, it's really a cell phone, especially right now when they have. I don't know if you saw. There's a coupon on Amazon right now.
Oh yeah,
after that, $315.
Yeah, that's crazy cheap.
I mean, if you're not like a super power user, it's a great phone to have. Like, it does a ton of different things. The main camera is obviously the best camera, and everything else is kind of wishy-washy after that. But it gets the job done. I like the dual LEDs. And my main thing I was saying in my review, the shortcuts available on this thing.
Right? There's shortcuts everywhere.
There's like, if you hate this, you can do it this way. If you hate that, don't worry. You got 3 other ways to do it.
And they kind of sneak up on you.
Yeah, like I said in the review, is like if they had any more, it would kind of turn into a complaint. It was,
yeah, it's
which by the way, there are more, so it is going to turn into a complaint because I found more the other day.
When you use TCL's take on Android, it feels not quite stock, but not that far off of like a kind of stock Android build. But then you start finding those little touches, and it's like, oh, I see you, TCL. I see what you're doing there.
Yeah. I'm picking up what you're putting down. But the one thing that I really liked about the TCL 10 Pro was the fact that the camera module on the back was completely flush. Now, on the TCL 10 5G, you kind of get that too. I mean, it's up by maybe a millimeter, but it's also like the entire width of the phone. So like when you're sitting down on the table, it doesn't rock back and forth. Hey, I can see me in the back of the phone because of that mirror finish. So
here's a question for you with this phone really quickly before we go into it any further.
Yeah, absolutely.
I thought, and I wondered if you had the same experience when I took this phone out, and until I actually read the specs on it, I thought the back of this phone was plastic. Talking about the
you know what? I might have gotten that impression. I don't remember, honestly. So
it has kind of a weird, I don't know what the finish is on the glass, but if you feel this versus like something from Samsung, it just has and I'm not talking about the silky like matte finish that like the 10 Pro has.
Right.
And then I'm not saying it's not bad. I was kind of surprised at first. Just first impressions kind of thing.
And especially when you find out that it is glass, but like, I didn't really care what the back was made of because of that transflective
3D
finish
glass
that's on there. You really can't see it here, unfortunately, and that's a consequence of actually having decent lighting for a camera. But anyway, like if you watch my unboxing, which let's talk about unboxings in a minute. But anyway, if you watch my unboxing, I was able to capture some of the play of the light on the back of the phone, and I gotta tell you, like going back to the Honor 8, was it? It was the Honor 8, right?
What you bought from me, right?
Yeah, I have very thoroughly enjoyed using phones that I can spend as much time looking at the back of the phone as I can looking at the front of the phone. And like this phone comes to mind, obviously the Honor 8, a lot of the Honor brands actually. And what are some of the others? Like I think Vivo had one that was pretty crazy. And there was one at CES 2019, and I can't remember. It was one of the kind of like, we never really put out a phone that you should take seriously brands, but like still it was kind of cool. That's gonna bug me.
If you look at a lot of the stuff that's coming out of actually it's a lot of brands that we don't get. So a lot of stuff from Huawei / Honor, stuff from like Realme and the other BBK brands, even on like the plastic backs. I think I was looking at Miriam Jawara was unboxing a Realme phone the other day, and it had like a half of the phone had a different, like it was almost like it had been run on a grinder at a different level, so it like reflected differently, but it was also a matte finish. It was just, and like what Huawei does with the Mate series with that finish around the camera hump, and it's a circle.
Yeah.
It's interesting to see because it's almost becoming like depending on which brand you're talking about, sort of each one has its own thing kind of going on.
Yeah, I definitely love and you, I'm sure, Cliff, as a designer, you probably really dig on that type of stuff just because, and
like you said, I like what's going on with the 10 5G here. It's great.
Yeah, I mean, like the 10 5G has been a really solid phone. You know, you can do a lot with it. It's powerful. It's got the Snapdragon 765G in it. Is it the G or is it just a straight up 765?
So
I don't remember.
A review I read just because I was looking at it for comparison said it was the 765G. If you look at their specs, it just says 765. So I'm honestly not sure.
Okay, yeah, so it could go either way. But anyway, like it's in the 765 is a very capable processor. We've seen it in the Velvet. We've seen it in the Rebel 5G, I believe, has the same one.
I have it in the Moto Edge as well. The Moto 765. Yeah.
The Moto. Oh, thank you for reminding me about the Moto Edge because I need to give you 5 minutes on that one. So because we talked about that. So,
sure.
But anyway, it's a very capable processor. I was a little disappointed in the cameras. Just because like the Rebel 5G, which is also made by TCL,
it's the same phone. They're both the 965 model, actually.
But the camera modules are like, there were some surprises in the Rebel 5G that I did not find in the TCL 5G, which I was a little disappointed about. But what I will say to finish up on the 5G, on the TCL 5G, is that this weekend, while everybody is punching each other in the face at Walmart on Black Friday, I'm going to be strolling my way all around to the Chicago area. From, this isn't going to mean anything to you, Cliff, but like Mike knows, I'm going to be going from Cal City up to Antioch, all the way out to Elgin, down to Joliet, and everywhere in between.
Are you refilming the Blues Brothers?
No.
Do you have a used police car?
But I am going to Old Joliet's prison, so
All right.
that is on the agenda.
Actually, I know where Joliet is. That's where my father-in-law's from. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But anyway, so I'm going to be testing 5G on the TCL 10 5G.
All right.
And the Velvet, AT&T branded Velvet, and the T-Mobile Revel 5G. So I'm going to be testing all three carriers' 5G networks in, I believe I have 20 different locations mapped out throughout the Chicagoland area. And actually, it's actually closer to like 25 because I'm going to go several places downtown. I just put downtown as like one location.
Okay.
But anyway, so there's going to be a video on that on YouTube, and I'll be doing some, I'll probably do some kind of summary on it on the podcast. I don't know how, but it's not just going to be like clips of me talking, but maybe it will be. I don't know.
That'll be interesting.
It'll be interesting. I'm really interested to see like whose network actually kind of lives up to the hype, and I suspect I know which one, and I don't think Verizon and AT&T are going to like it. But anyway,
it'll be interesting to see if you can pick up much of the new spectrum that I guess they basically relaunched their 5G on with Verizon that's sharing the same bandwidth as 4G.
Yeah, here's what we needed to do in order to carry the iPhone 5G.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So one quick thought on the 10 5G. So you remember when the L, the Pro, and this phone were first, I guess it was shown at CES, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay.
I want to say they were teased at IFA last year, but they were officially shown, or at least like confirmed at CES.
So the 5G in some form was actually shown on their product page in the US, and then it kind of disappeared. And if you go back and you look at the specs of what was shown then and what we have specifically as a exclusive on Verizon, right? It's kind of the same phone.
There was an international variant,
right?
That came out, and that was like over the summer, because I remember asking TCL about that. I'm like, I'm still on your list, right? And they're like, yeah, this is not US. So I'm like, okay, good.
But it's just it's always interesting to see, and I'm curious to see if some of the, because I don't have the Revel like you have, to see if some of those same changes were made. Like if you look at the main sensor is the 48 megapixel ISO that the L has instead of the 64 that it was originally supposed to ship with, and which is the same sensor that ships on the Pro. So it went down in terms of total megapixels.
Yeah.
And they also removed the customizable like Google Assistant button on the right side.
Right.
And it's just you just wonder like what in those conversations, when they're tweaking it for, like, did they take out the button because they needed antennas for the ultra wideband,
or something?
They just don't want. It's just interesting to see those changes that are made. Did they lower the spec on the camera because it was competing with something, or did they just need to get a little more margin in it? And did they make those same changes with the Revel?
Those are very good questions to ask.
Does it have the button on the side?
It does not. It does not.
Okay.
So, yeah. So like
interesting.
Yeah. So like here's the Revel, and we have just power, volume up, volume down, and then here's the 5G with the volume up and volume down. And power.
It's got that iPhone-esque.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh totally. The camera module,
little like stovetop going on there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah,
that's what I like calling it anyway.
That's why when you said it was the same module, I'm like, no, it's not. But I think
the model number, they're both 965 from That's so they're based on the same. Anyway,
Let's-
I don't know.
let's do
I was doing a little
without-
digging with this.
Yeah, without the cases, so then you can.
I like
yeah.
the look of that. Though,
Okay.
too. Is that glass?
The on the Rebel
Mhm.
on this guy. It's so weird because it's like backwards. I believe it is a glass finish on the back too.
Oh, and it's got the
So-
little touch of color on the side there with the power button.
Mhm.
Interesting.
It is very fun. So that's going to be. You're going to see
It's-
plenty of those on the YouTube video whenever
It's
it comes out.
good radio we're doing here.
But now, Cliff, we have a request from our audience. Tell us about the Edge. So, okay, a little context here. We had Cliff queued up for the beginning of the month to do a Moto Edge review, but honestly, reviews are a lot of work, and I don't pay Cliff. And he just had like a lot of day job stuff going on, and I think you had like people in over from out of town. It was like it did not work out. So we ended up having to scrap that. But I did want to give him time on the recap to give kind of a TLDR version of what he would have said in the review. So because he has been cheering for this phone in our private Slack for months. So Cliff, get it all out of your system. Let's go.
So it's funny, right? Let's just like between all these phones we discussed, it's like the fourth 765 based phone that I've used, and it's interesting to see how much a difference software makes in terms of performance. I mean, the Edge, not to say that any of the phones with the 765 aren't decently fast, but the Edge feels like it's got an 865 in it and like 8 gigabytes of RAM. And I think it's Motorola optimizes their software so well. And I think if you're buying a Motorola phone, that's one of the things you expect, all those little software niceties like the chop for the flashlight and the twisty door handle, whatever you want to call it, to launch the camera.
Yeah. And
so all those niceties are in there. It's just a departure from Motorola, though, because really all they've been building, at least for this market, have been like, value oriented phones, like lower middle range to like the Moto E, so like $100 and up. This has an absolutely gorgeous display, and it's got those take it or leave it, waterfall edges. But
leave it.
Yeah, for a lot of people, what? I actually found that I didn't have a lot of accidental touch issues like I have with some of the Samsung phones, or even on the LG's Velvet. So I still think I prefer a flat screen. But I'll tell you, it's one of those phones. I actually had it with me when I went down to visit my parents, and my brother was there, and he'd never seen it, didn't know what it was. But when it's just such a striking display because of the way it falls off, and it just has the little bit of bezels on the top and the bottom, really, really thin. So I mean, you can do that with an AMOLED screen, which this has.
Do you have it with you?
I do not. It is
okay. I was gonna say, if you got it, hold it up. But
I could run and get it, but it's probably not worth it to fire.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
But so I think a lot of things are kind of like you would expect. So great software, like I was saying, with all of the Motorola niceties. The camera set is okay. It's actually some of the better. It's some of the better cameras I've used on a Motorola phone, and
that's
that is
a big
to say
caveat, but yes,
correct. Yeah, it's the asterisk on it. So meaning takes great photos in good to great light, and it kind of struggles in lower light. But it is nice in that, like a lot of it's a lot like the 760. I'm sorry, like the competing with a phone like the Fan Edition from Samsung.
Yep.
And that it's in that same price range. I think, in this case, I think the Samsung has a better camera set. But if you're talking about just a phone that's a conversation piece, light on software, and just a pleasure to use, this is a phone I think just about anybody that's a fan of Android, a Pixel fan, somebody like that would really enjoy. Yeah, I keep coming back to that phone. I do. As much as I enjoy it's great to be in a position where you get to use a whole bunch of different phones, but there's just something about it that I really like. And it's funny, it has a plastic back too, but it just feels, it's got a weight to it, a heft. I know I'm just kind of going on and gushing about it.
That's why you're here. That's literally your job description right now. So yeah, go.
And if I remember right, when the Edge Plus came out, which was a Verizon exclusive, whereas this is an unlocked device that I'm using, I remember people saying when they had their hands on that they were really impressed by the Edge Plus. And I mean, it's the same thing with this phone. It really is. It's a baller device, especially for, I think you can get it off and on for like $399. When it came out, it was $699, I think. And it's been hovering around that $599, $499 range. But around Black Friday, I think this time of the year, you can get it for around $400. And at that price, it's a steal. I will say I'm testing, I don't know if I'm supposed to talk about this, but I'm testing Android 11 on it with Motorola's feedback network. And they've got a little bit of sorting to do. But, I mean, the fact that it's getting it before the Fan Edition from Samsung that just launched, or before even any of their other devices, is something that gives me hope for Motorola, because that's one thing that was a caveat for me, too, with Motorola phones, the fact that software updates were not one of their strengths. So we'll see how that goes, but I think it's promised to feature or releases. So I guess 11 and 12, and then it's been pretty good with the security updates too. So you guys have any questions about it that I can answer for you?
No, I mean you covered the accidental touches, because that, like, to me, and I know you and I are different in, physique. I've got these sausage fingers that like it's like I feel like, whenever I want to like hold on to a phone and I reach over with my thumb, it feels like it kind of like if I were wearing a Speedo and everything was flopping over. That's kind of like how I feel. Try not to imagine that in your head, trust me. But like that's kind of how I feel with like my thumb touching the screen. But like my biggest thing is like, so let me just show you, like when I'm holding a phone, like let's just say for like Call of Duty or something like that, I'm holding the phone like this, fingers on the top and stuff like that. And like when I reach over with my thumb, like this part of my finger, which there it is, like this part is like all pushy up against the screen, and that's the part that drives me nuts. I couldn't use the Samsung Fan Edition without a case. Like if I was using this phone, and I tried to describe this during the review, but I couldn't. So now that I have a camera, let me do it. I had to use the phone like this,
You're poking it with a stick. Seriously.
I mean, it was just like, so, so I'm glad that you addressed that, but like, I was kind of actually interested, like I always go back to cameras and battery life. Those are like my two big things. So, and you already kind of talked about the cameras a little bit. How's the battery life?
Is incredible, actually. And I found that to be the case with just about every 765 based phone that I've used.
That's fair. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I think again, it comes back with Motorola to that optimizing the software on top of the hardware. Just, I can go, if I'm not doing a power user style day where I'm just, maybe I'm listening to a little music, the screen on time isn't huge, I can easily go 2 days on that phone.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, hey, Mike, did you have any questions about the phone before we move on? I'm going to put you on the Edge,
but I don't have any questions actually about the Edge.
Okay.
Covered that pretty well. I did want to go back because I haven't actually been able to see it. The 5G UW, the TCL one, does that have a waterfall screen as well?
It does not. That is a flat screen. Yeah, the Pro has a roll off screen.
Yeah, that was my downfall for it, was just
it's interesting
distortion when you're watching a video.
That is a flat screen. So.
I like that.
It is.
I like
it. Is interesting too, because the 10 Pro and the Edge, even though that they both have waterfall screens, like the radius of where it comes off is so different. Like the 10 Pro is pretty thin, and it's kind of it's a real tight just curvature. Yeah. I think with the 10 Pro, the Edge, it really is just it's like I'm trying to get it in the camera here. It's like that. Like it really rolls off. Like you're definitely aware that it's there. It also makes it really nice to hold. I will say the one thing I do with any of these waterfall screen ones, a lot of these have like the Samsung style swipe in from the side, little shortcuts. I completely turn that off on the Motorola because I was accidentally activating that. And I do the same thing with Samsung if it's a waterfall screen. I cannot stand it.
Yeah.
So maybe that's how I'm avoiding some of the accidental touch stuff.
That could be.
Maybe.
That could be. So, okay. All right. So let's kind of shift gears a little bit because we're actually 40 minutes into this thing already. So that's kind of cool. The next thing that's kind of on the agenda was I got to sit down with Adam B. Levine from CoinDesk, not the guy from Maroon 5. Maroon 5, is that it? But anyway,
yes, that's right. That's right.
So Homeboy has been running a podcast network over at CoinDesk, entirely about cryptocurrency, and so like when I came across him, I'm like, dude, we need to talk. Because I think we had a really, really great discussion like on like the state of cryptocurrency and kind of like what what it is. So about 3 years ago or so, when I was working with Android Authority, I became kind of like the cryptocurrency writer for a while there.
How did that happen?
And so I don't know. So we were chatting with Ryan. I was chatting with Ryan in Slack the one time, and I'm just like Ryan St. Andre, by the way. And so I'm just like I was telling them, I'm like, I've written like 4 articles over on Android Authority about like cryptocurrency and Bitcoin, and I have no idea what it is or how it works. and Ryan just piped in. He's like, well, what's to know? And I'm like, what it is and how it works. So like it's just so like I went into that interview as a complete moron. Sorry, I just had a notification. So I went into that like a complete moron and I knew nothing about it. And we just had a really fascinating conversation all the way from Bitcoin ATMs to, whether or not this is an investment or whatever. And I would like to point out that my article, the show notes on benefitofadoubt.com had a leader image of a roller coaster as promised. So now I sent you guys both the full interview. What were you guys thinking? Did you come off of that like knowing more about cryptocurrency than you did before?
Yeah, I definitely learned a little bit more than I already kind of knew.
Mm-hmm. My head still hurts.
It does, doesn't it? But one of the things about Adam is that he's been doing this for so long. I think he really had a very approachable and easy manner about it. Like, just the way like he was able to explain things. And what was the one question? He said he'd been working on how to answer it for like 8 years, and he finally came to it like just a few months ago. So it was very well timed, and I think it was basically like we talked a lot about money and just how money works in general and how cryptocurrency could fix that. And then one of the things that I think ended up on the bonus version of the interview, I think I might have cut this out of the main version, was the idea of ownership on the internet. And that's something that I've actually been very keenly aware of for a long time. Mm-hmm. God damn it.
You're popular mad, Adam.
Well, yeah. Except, you know what? It's because that phone isn't in the drawer. Okay.
Actually, Sammy, I recognize the notification.
Yep.
So.
Anyway, what was I saying? Talking about ownership on the internet, and that's something that I became very keenly aware of. I want to say like as long as 7 or 8 years ago, because there were a few prominent tech journalists that had their Amazon accounts suspended, and it was it was in the same like 4 or 5 month period, and they all wrote articles about like how they supposedly breached Amazon's terms of service, and Amazon wouldn't tell them why, but as a result they like lost all of the stuff that they had bought from Amazon, or I should say air quotes bought from Amazon, because as we may not be aware, and this is a PSA for anybody who listens to this, when you buy a movie on Amazon, you're not buying the movie. You're buying a license to watch it. For as long as Amazon can provide it. And that could be, it's probably going to be years. It could be a few days. Like, it just kind of depends on
honestly, with digital stuff, it's the same thing as with physical media. When you were buying a CD, technically, as far as the law is concerned, it's you're only buying, like, yes, you are purchasing the physical media that you're using, an implement to listen to, but you're only buying the right to listen to that, which is why, like, if you destroyed your cassette, like an unwound in your tape player, you couldn't,
contact Sony and say, "Here, send me another copy." Right? No,
my tape player.
That's actually a very that's a very good point. Like if you do like damage a CD, it's not like you can call Metallica and say, send me another one because I own your music, you know, but
I feel like you might be able to call up Lars and do that though. Like,
oh yeah. I'm sure Lars would be all over that.
Yeah,
totally. Like telephone customer service Lars. He's just got like a Bluetooth headset.
Hello, this is Lars.
Hey, what's up? Hey, what's up? This is Lars. How you doing? Hey, Lars, I actually scratched the Black Album. It's not called the Black Album, asshole. It's just called Metallica. All right. Yeah. So anyway,
you know, Weezer names their albums by color. Just get on it.
Yeah, right. But anyway, so like, and the one thing that he was pointing out, you know, in regards to all of this is that a blockchain type system could solve that ownership problem, because then that would be an unalterable permanent record that you own, you know, XYZ media, and then all a service provider would have to do would be to tap into that blockchain and say, okay, yes, he owns it, I can show it to him, that type of thing. Yeah. So it was an interesting turn to the conversation that I wasn't planning on. You know, because like I usually go into these things with like a series of questions that I want to ask, but like with crypto, I had nothing. Like, what's a Bitcoin? That was about the best I could manage, because I didn't know anything about it. And side note, Leo Laporte, who runs the Twit network, the Twit podcast network, he did a Medium post or something. He did a few months back. Where like he was talking about how people ask him how he does interviews, and he's like, I go into a room with smart people and I have a conversation with them, and that's how I do interviews. I'm like, that's amazing, and that like justifies so much of my career now. So hat tip to Leo Laporte. So did you guys have any other things that you want to talk about cryptocurrency? Because I did want to talk about one more elephant in the room that happened this month. Before we go,
I was gonna say how just a great week to pick that, because Bitcoin has just been going up this last week so much.
Yeah, give it a few days.
Roller coaster.
And I was actually surprised you didn't bring up, and probably could have been whenever you actually record the interview, the conversation about ownership with that woman who was suing Amazon.
I believe that happened after our conversation, because I want to say the interview was beginning of October-ish. And so
like 2 weeks ago,
that hadn't happened yet, but I definitely thought of that when I read that story. And did I put that into the podcast? I don't think I did. I don't think I had that in the normal weekly podcast, but anyway, So, all right. So let's go ahead and transition over to our, actually, you know what? Let's go ahead and transition over to, I don't know if this is going to be our last topic, but it might be. So it kind of depends on how things roll. And actually, you know what? I want to do one more thing real quick before I do that. Give me 1 second. I'm sorry. This is bad radio especially for the poor souls that are listening live. I'm so sorry.
It's okay. You already pissed off one because you messed up his last name. So
yeah, I've been messing up his last name since he became a patron, though. So like, this is nothing new. But no, actually, speaking of which, that's kind of what I wanted to do here. Was I owe some shout outs to patrons, starting with, of course, Cliff, because he's here. And by the way, he is legitimately a patron, everybody. So like, I'm not just giving him a shout out because he's co-producer Cliff. He is actually legitimately a patron, and I have no idea why.
So he pays you to do work for you.
Yes, he does. And that's the beautiful part of our relationship. So anyway, I'm going to give a shout out to Scott Brady and Neil Wilson, Johan Bresky, Michael Kepper, thank you, and Cliff Thomas, obviously, and Zachary Palmer, who is our other audience member for the evening. So thank you both. I'm going to say thank you directly. You can't see it, but I'm looking at the chat. I'm looking at your names in the chat when I say thank you both. Thank you, Cliff. Mike? Anyway.
Hey, so not only am I paying you to do work for you? I'm also walking around as a billboard.
Yeah, you
There you
are.
go.
Yeah, you
There
are.
you go.
Repping the merch, baby.
You got repping the merch. I appreciate that. So, okay. So let's go ahead and transition over into the last planned thing I wanted to talk about.
Okay.
And that is Tim Apple and the M1. So the last week we saw the launch, and again, this, when people are listening to this, it'll be 2 or 3 weeks ago. But last week we saw the launch of the M1, and we got a MacBook Air, a MacBook Pro, and a Mac Mini. And I did a story on those last week, and because I wasn't doing an iPhone review and I had to fill time, but no, it was fairly significant. And then the reviews started to drop, and apparently this thing is a screamer. I mean, it is like an insanely good chip. But then this week, and I'm going to talk about this, this coming weekend. But then this week we saw a review come out from Forbes, which, okay, fine, Forbes, but still.
Forbes, king of the clickbait.
Right. And you will believe what happened next.
Yes.
So anyway, there was an article from Forbes.
The nasty little secret Apple doesn't want you to know about.
Yeah, right. Oh man, it's in the training manual for Forbes. So you have to include the word nasty and somewhere in. Yes. But anyway, nasty or surprise, bonus points if you put both in. But anyway, so no, there was a Forbes writer whose name escapes me, which I'm very sorry about that. I will mention it this weekend. And actually, if I went to my headlines, I could pull it up real quick. And why not? I've already delayed this long enough, so I could just do this. Yeah, here we go. From Patrick Moorhead. And so Patrick has been putting the M1, the MacBook Pro, through its paces, and I believe he got the base model of it. He was not an Apple sanctioned reviewer. I'm using air quotes there. But anyway, and what he did was he started commenting on all these different... Sorry, I hit my mic stand. He started commenting on all these different apps and services that he was trying to use on the MacBook, and es no bueno. So, and a lot of his focus, and I saw this comment from David Ruddock, I believe, who pointed out that a lot of the people that did reviews on the M1 initially were bloggers, were tech reporters like me and kind of sort of like Cliff and like Mike. And so, and he pointed out that people in our line of work tend to live in web browsers. So we do a lot of stuff in web browsers, which is why, that's the other thing I wanted to talk about. And I guess we might have to extend the show a little bit. I was going to say, which is why when I got this new computer, I was able to just basically set it down and start going right away. There was no real huge move in, but so we'll talk about the new computer in a second. But anyway, but what Patrick was his name? Patrick
Moorhead.
Patrick?
Yeah.
Yeah, Patrick. So what Patrick was doing was he was using a lot of enterprise apps Microsoft Suite specifically, but there was a lot of other not typical, not Slack, not Discord, but more Pro Tools and VirtualBox. And he had a lot of Adobe stuff in there, which, I know people that have been using Adobe stuff on the M1 and it's been okay. But Microsoft Teams and Docker and basically apps that I've never really heard of because I don't work in an enterprise environment and I haven't in almost a dozen years. So as it turns out, the M1, as much as everyone loved it, as much as everybody's saying it's an amazing, chip that's more powerful than anything that's ever been made, this guy's not so fast, and a lot of that has to do with Rosetta 2 and its ability to properly interpret pretty much all of the apps that he's using, because none of them were built by Apple, and very few of them have been built for Apple hardware in general, let alone a new ARM based chip. But anyway, so I plan to address this weekend. So, but I want to transition back to the Apple sanctioned reviewers. And the reason I'm keep saying Apple sanctioned reviewers is if you read this article, the term Apple sanctioned reviewers in air quotes is used a dozen times to imply the people that Apple picked. And of course, they're going to have a positive opinion about this, but that's really just not the case. But anyway, but a lot of people are saying like a lot of the reviews when they dropped last week gave me serious pause about like buying a Windows laptop, because it's like, oh, well, crap, maybe this thing is amazing. Maybe I should just do that. But anyway, so I just want to, that's a long way to get to the point of this conversation, but I wanted to talk to, let's ask Mike first, because Cliff has been talking a lot recently. Let's ask Mike first. What do you think about the M1? Are you getting a new MacBook? And how are you feeling about it in general?
Okay. Well, I don't know about MacBook, but I definitely want to get a Mac, because the last one I had was the 2011 MacBook Pro. You know, the unibody one with the DVD drive.
You mean the one that my wife is using upstairs right now, because that's what her school issued to her in 2019?
I'm so sorry.
With a DVD drive, no less. I mean, it is the first computer we've had in this house with an optical drive in almost a decade. But anyway.
I remember when that laptop actually looked svelte, too. Now you look at it, it's like, huh!
I don't doubt it. But anyway, so go ahead, Mike. So you're thinking about getting a new Mac, maybe like Mac Mini, possibly?
Yeah, possibly a Mac Mini, because most of the time when I'm out, an iPad does just fine.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, they got some work to do. It just came out. Developers have had it since June. Was it June or May?
So at WWDC, Apple debuted a kind of like a developer's kit.
Yeah,
Mac
with
Mini.
the A14.
Yeah, with the A14 in it, but like I think the M1 that hasn't been in developers' hands. I mean, it was probably in a few developers' hands before, but like not in any official announced capacity.
Gotcha. Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot to work on. The good thing is there does seem to be workarounds.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, like the Microsoft Suite, you could install the iPad version.
Yeah,
because that's now an option.
Well, even the reviewers said that iPad apps on the MacBook were not so good. So
okay, well,
but anyway,
yeah, you kind of stuck there then. Yeah. I'm not jumping to get one right away.
Okay,
that's
all right.
That's where I sit. I'm waiting it out.
And you know, my words in you know to Cliff were I'm not interested in beta testing Apple's first gen hardware. So and like. I expanded upon this a little bit in the last episode, but like the main reason for that is not so much because I think Apple's doing a bad job, but it's more because like the computer that I get to replace my old MacBook would be my main computer. And like I would have nothing to fall back on if that fell short in a given area. Like let's say, you know, I find out it's not great at processing audio. That's kind of a problem for a podcaster. So, and I like don't really have any other hardware that I could use that would be able to take up that slack. I mean, I've got an old Lenovo ThinkBook that I could potentially use, but different conversation. So like I just couldn't take the risk that there would be anything that would fall short. So,
and at the same time, you want to spend at least $1,000 to maybe it doesn't work.
Yeah, right.
Like,
right.
Maybe it works. Maybe I have to use the thing I was using before. Nah, that's a bit much.
It is. So, how about Cliff? What's your temperature here?
Well, so I'm an old Apple head, like going back to like even System 9.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went through the days of the G4 and the G5, and then the transition over to Intel and using Rosetta because back then you didn't have subscription software for the Adobe product of the Adobe suite. So I was using the original Creative Suite on the Rosetta emulation, and it was god awful. So I'll let somebody else have that fun. Although it does seem like you're saying, a lot of people are benchmarking that the software that's like Adobe Creative Suite Creative Cloud stuff against the same stuff on Intel. And even though it's running on Rosetta 2, it's still at least matching what it's doing on maxed out hardware. So that's impressive. Yeah, I think color me not surprised with some of the results that you've had with because it's never that transition, no matter how well they prepared for it and how good Rosetta 2 is it's never without its bumps in the road. Mm-hmm. So like you're saying, like I think the second generation devices will. The other thing is it seems like they didn't really with this hardware, like they didn't really change the design of the actual chassis to sort of take advantage of how thin and things like that you technically could make a I mean it's so I would expect the next series of hardware to maybe be a little more optimized and sort of special for the for that M1. The other thing I have to say, this is one of those things that's kind of glaring though, is look how far ahead they are of where Microsoft is, who has been doing stuff on ARM as far as their desktop operating system is concerned for what now, like 3-4 years.
Okay.
Just look how much farther along Apple is out of the gate.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, actually, and there's like still stuff on ARM Windows laptops that are just kind of like, right.
Any of the legacy stuff is just bad. Any of the 32-bit stuff, you're just like, no.
Yeah. Or it just flat out doesn't install work to begin with.
Yeah, exactly. There's an interesting point that was made on a podcast I was listening to, and I wish I could give credit to who it was, but I can't recall. It might have been the Verge podcast, but this is very true. With the transition from the old G5 IBM RISC-based processors over to CISC with basically going to x86, Apple was backed into a corner there because the thermals on the G5 were so hot that they couldn't fit it inside a MacBook Pro. So they were forced to transition to Intel. This time they chose to go with their own silicon.
They did, but Ars Technica, I believe, had like kind of a graph showing the power of the various A chips that Apple has developed compared to basically Intel chips of the same year and generation. Mm-hmm. And like the Apple is going up, like the performance values are going up at like almost like a 30-degree angle, whereas Intel is like very much like almost plateaued. So, but then the question is like, then they showed like the A14, which is right up where Intel was, which is fine, except Intel was there like 5 years ago and hasn't moved up much since. So I have to kind of wonder if like Apple's going to plateau now that they've reached that. I kind of wonder if there's any way that Apple's going to be able to force any more performance out of this hardware. And that again will be answered when we get to Gen 2.
Yeah, I'll be really interested to see what they can do with we may not see this anytime soon, but when they eventually get to like a pro level desktop, to see when they've got a lot more cooling to work with, they can really push the thermals on it, to go and the thing that's really limited right now too with this first generation M1 is you can only the IO is limited. I think you can only do 2 USB-C ports.
Yeah.
As far as and then you can only do 16 gigabytes of RAM, which honestly I think is probably fine for 90% of people.
Probably.
But it's definitely first generation hardware. I remember when Apple first hired some silicon engineers, and so how that always goes, where people kind of prognosticate on what a company is doing based on like their LinkedIn jobs that are out there or whatnot, and they hired. I can't remember where it was a company. I think they actually bought the company as kind of an acqui-hire thing, and everybody was like, "Looks like Apple's doing their own ARM hardware. This could be interesting." And this eventually became the A1, and so on. I think it's just really interesting how much more performance they get out of their ARM-based processors than something like the equivalent from like Qualcomm or Samsung.
Yeah.
Some of that may have to be like literally the vertical integration and the optimization of the operating system specifically for that hardware versus Android on top of ARM or whatever. But it's just they feel like they're like 2 years ahead of everybody else.
And one of the articles that I read said they were actually thinking 3 years ahead of everybody. So,
well, I mean, they were like one of the first to the 5 nanometer die size and stuff like that. So it is just it's a very interesting time to be an Apple user.
It is. And you know what? I would have loved to have been an Apple user, but unfortunately, unfortunately or unfortunately, I don't know how you want to call it, but I guess I don't want to say unfortunately because that's obviously the exact wrong thing to say about a new laptop that I just bought. But I am officially an MSI user because I picked up an MSI GL75 Leopard, and it is it's funny because both my daughter and my wife have looked at the oscillating RGB keyboard like, ooh, I want that. and I'm like, well, for the bargain price of just $1,200, you can have it too. And my wife's like, no, thanks. So, but you'll notice I didn't say that about my daughter. But yeah, so like, no, so big shout out to Cliff and to Ryan, who both kind of helped me make this decision, because honestly, when it comes to PC hardware, you know, I've been a Mac user for 5 years, and I haven't bought a new laptop in almost 10. So like, I just wasn't really all that up on like what was out there. And so like Cliff is, you know, he's the smartest guy in this room. I'm not gonna deny it. But like, especially when it comes to like computer hardware and just like general, you know, electronic knowledge. No offense, Mike. I'm sure you're brainy, but anyway. But anyway, so when it comes to stuff like that, like he was indispensable, and I mentioned that on the podcast this coming weekend, so stay tuned for that. And so just a little preview as to what's coming up this weekend, which again, by the time most people are hearing this, it'll be 3 weeks ago. But I'm go into the thought process that kind of led me to ultimately picking this laptop, and I think that folks will enjoy hearing that. At least they'll enjoy hearing how much of an idiot I am. I mean, I think that's really what the main draw of this podcast is overall. So, but yeah, so I'll talk about that more on the weekend. And you know what? Let me get out my mirror finish TCL 105G, and I'll use that to reflect the pretty keyboard onto the webcam. And oh, there you go. See, look at that. Yeah, and it's a 17-inch monitor, which, oh my god,
yeah,
it's like I had a 13-inch monitor on my MacBook, and it was just like, holy god, like,
you know what? I'm impressed though that is a 17-inch laptop that only weighs 5.5 pounds. Like I remember I used to sell,
god, mine was like 10.
Yes, I used to sell computers back in the day, and I remember actually, if you've watched any of like Michael Fisher's videos of like his old HP that he has, the 17-inch HP that has the QWERTY on, or I'm not the number pad on the side. That thing literally weighed nearly 10 pounds. I remember that computer so distinctly because I was just like, beast.
Yeah, but then at the same time, this is also, is it 5.5 hours of battery life? I mean, it's like it's actually really sad.
Yeah, that part, yeah. It's the discrete GPU and the giant power brick there that's sort of the hampers you. It's like the laptop's 5.5 pounds, and then your
the power brick. Oh my god, the power brick.
It's silly.
So this weekend on the YouTube channel, I'm going to be posting the unboxing and first impressions of this particular device. Hang on one second, I'm turning off my heater because of course it kicked on. But anyway, so this coming weekend, I'm going to be posting the unboxing and first impressions of this laptop. And trust me, the power brick gets a few minutes of screen time because this thing is just a monster when it comes to like just size and weight. And like, oh my God, I really hope I haven't tested to see if the one USB-C port on this computer has power delivery in it. I doubt it does, which is unfortunate. But
it actually should have on like the little silk screening on the side. If it does support that, it'll have that little
To be fair, it'd probably only be able to power your keyboard at that point.
That's true.
That's so true.
That's true. But hey, I've got some Rev powered Anchor like hardware here that's like pumping out 65 watts. It should be able to, but no, you're right. It's just like it's insane. But yeah, I mean, there's an HDMI out on this. There's two USB A's on this side and a USB-C. There's one microphone port and one headphone port jack, which is nice, and then there's a couple of USB-A's on this side, and like the card reader, the SD card reader, it's a full-size SD card reader, and it's the kind that you actually like push in and it like locks in. So like I haven't had that ever, and so that's like kind of a novelty to me. But it's great. It's been great. Like we've done this entire show, and you know, my old MacBook would have been like by now, and like this one is not doing that. It's definitely moving air. I can feel that it's blowing some air, but I can't even hear the fans, so that's pretty cool.
So true story. Going back to that HP laptop that I was talking about.
Yeah,
this is actually my only like real celebrity encounter. So this will be, unless you're this I guess I should say this dates me as far as my age, and probably Adam as well, but Play from Kid and Play.
Oh wow.
I lived in Greensboro, North Carolina at the time, and I didn't know who it was. When so he bought an open box, which I'm happy to say I sold Tap On, which is the extended service. This is a copy.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
And then he returned it on me, that bastard.
No commission for you.
No commission. That was Anyway, but what's funny about that is that there was this big burly guy that worked in the warehouse, as most guys that work in the warehouse at places like that are. Goes, yo man, do you know who that was? I'm like, I have no idea. He's like, yo man, that's Play, man. You sold a laptop to Play. You know, like, and then I would like, and of course it was like rudimentary Google back then. It didn't have a smartphones, but of course it was. I would have looked it up. I'm like, it totally was.
Wow, that was Play. Yeah. Nice. Well, speaking of Play, Mike, thank you so much for joining us this evening. We're going to wrap things up. I want you to go ahead and roll out the red carpet for you, and tell people where we can find you, Mr. BenderTube, on your YouTube channel and on the Twitters and all that. So by all means, share.
Oh, certainly. You'll be able to find my channel at youtube.com/BenderTubeOG and at BenderTubeOG on anything else.
Nice. Instagram, Twitter. Do you have a TikTok account yet?
No, I do not.
You got to get on that, because like in 3 days they're going to get banned.
Reels? Have you seen the Instagram Reels?
No, I haven't.
Have you done the feels? No, what is it? Fleets?
The fleets. I did a couple fleets complaining about my coffee and my deliveries.
Fleets.
I'm going to do fleets complaining about fleets.
I did a fleet.
That was the first one, of course.
I was actually going to completely write off fleets, but then Daniel Bader from Android Central, friend of a show, kind of threw out a challenge to like all the tech journos out there. Like, I want to see your work from home space, like your home office space. Okay. So I did a terrible it was like my desk was dusty and like everything. It was like terrible fleet about like my my home office space, but I got to show off a table that I made in my sunroom, so I was happy about that. But it was gone in 24 hours, so I didn't care how terrible it was. See and that's what Stephen Colbert said about fleets last week. Was that's exactly what Twitter needs: the ability to get rid of things that are too bad to stay on Twitter. So that's not how he put it, but anyway. Okay, so let's wrap things up. Bender, thank you very much for coming on, and Cliff, thank you very much for staying on, because love you, bro. And Mike,
love you too, man.
Love you, bro. So, and as for the rest of my listeners, I love all of you very much as well. And we're coming into December, so let's get that holiday shopping going. Or if you don't celebrate, then let's just, get Friday going, whatever, however it works for you. But yeah, so we're rounding out the end of the year in isolation, probably, but here's hoping for a better 2021. But you know what? We have another Doubting Thomas where we can talk about all that. So as for November 2020, it is in the books. And I thank you for listening and for giving all of us, the three of us, the benefit of the doubt.
And the beard is out.
And the beard is out. All right. Y'all can stop your recordings.
Okay.
And I'm going to hope that my recording is still going. Yes, it is. Okay, good.
We got an hour and 6 minutes and almost 7 seconds.
There you go. We're still live.
Yep, I know. That's okay. I'm going to turn that off right. That's the wrong window. It's Chrome again. I know. It's Chrome. It's fine. Oh, God. And I just